Welcome to the village. I'm here today with my friend Matt. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here and taking time out of your day on a snow day.
Yeah.
But I hope the Starbucks is good.
It's fantastic.
Okay, good. Did they do the whipped cream or no?
They did. They did.
And that's okay?
It's okay. It's better than okay. It's great.
Okay, good. Yeah, I usually like mine that way too, but I'm going with the pistachio today. So, like getting to know you over the past few years that I've known you, we've been talking about a lot of things. First of all, finances. And since this is a show about children and, it takes a village, so some of the things teaching your kids about finances, it's hard for people because they don't know or think about finances a lot themselves. But when we do approach this topic, like anything in life, you're going to tell us about how to have like a good mindset about it, kind of like starting your day and your life with a good positive energy and having a good aura about you. So when you are bringing up things like, well, anything really, but like finances, for example, you don't immediately feel kind of negative or stressed or anxious about it. Because sometimes we avoid talking about such things because of the negativity, but how do we kind of approach life with the positive mindset? So why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then we'll get started.
Okay. Well, my name is Matt Haye. I'm a financial advisor. I've been practicing now for a little over 9 years. And before I actually came into the world of finance, I worked for a very large beverage company, a national company, for about 12 years right out of college. And I've seen a lot. I've spoken to a lot of different types of people. We're in all different types of careers. And, to your point earlier, I think one of the things that I learned early on is that most people don't like to talk about finances. And it's at first, I guess I wasn't too confused that people didn't like to talk about finances.
Yeah.
But over time, I got a little anxious about it because I'm like, why do people not like to talk about finances?
Right.
Right? It's such a huge part of our life.
Yeah, if you ever bring it up to anyone, they immediately are like, well, I'm fine. I don't want to talk about it. Or they
That's
don't
right.
want to really discuss it.
That's right. They don't want to discuss it. And I think a lot of that stems from their upbringing.
Yeah.
Right. I can't speak for most people. I can speak for myself. I know that when I was a kid, when I was a child, whenever I asked my parents about money or how much money they had or how much money they made, I was really scolded. You don't ask me those questions.
Yeah, I'm surprised you asked that.
It's none of your business.
How much money do you make?
Right?
Right, exactly. Enough to clothe you and feed you. That's
Exactly.
all I need to know.
Which is not helpful at all because as a child, you're trying to understand money. Right?
Yeah.
And we all develop our relationship with money between the ages of 6 and 10. And most kids don't say anything, but they're watching. And they're watching their parents or guardians or caregivers and what they do with money and how they treat money and what their relationship is like with money.
Yeah.
And they start to form their own relationships with money. When it comes to just thinking about those conversations, right? Just with our own family members. I think everything's kind of backwards in our society. People don't talk about it, but we should have the reverse mindset. We should all be talking to our family about our money and what we do make and the assets that we do have.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, we got to protect it. And most people want to protect their assets so that when they pass away one day, those assets are efficiently transferring to their family.
It's interesting when you say that because when you do bring up assets with your family, or money, they immediately think it's because you're worried about passing away.
Right.
Like they don't want to talk about it ahead of time.
That's right.
Because it scares them because they immediately think about the negative, like,
that's right.
What's going to happen. And people don't want to they think you're thinking negatively, but really, aren't you thinking positively and you're thinking ahead and being responsible?
Well, when you think about the human mind, we have normally 80 to 100,000 thoughts a day. Mm-hmm. And of all of those thoughts a day we have, 90% of them, sometimes more, are negative. And it's how we're wired. It's because when we're a child, from the time we were a toddler, we could start to walk. Our parents, our caregivers, guardians told us all the things we couldn't do.
Yeah.
Hey, don't touch that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You can't eat that. You can't have that.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you're going through all these, your mind is going through all these motions and you're learning all these negative things, right?
Yeah.
All these negative feelings and negative thoughts about all these different things. We're programmed to be negative. What I learned is that for me, one of the biggest ninth wonders of the world, right? One of the biggest meanings of life is that we can really choose how we think and we can choose how we feel at all times.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens that you don't like and you get mad about it, well, you're choosing to be mad.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to be mad. Maybe that's making you actually feel good to be mad.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah. You almost like think you have to be mad, right?
Right. Because you're preconditioned to have that thought process, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to be happy, if you truly want to think positively, it takes a lot of work and you have to catch yourself. And it's tough because we have over 80,000 thoughts a day and they're mainly negative. But if you can start to slowly catch yourself and quickly change what may have been a negative thought into a positive thought, naturally, the more positive you are. And it starts from the minute you wake up. You know,
Yeah.
I know people that wake up in the morning and they're like, oh, this day's going to stink.
Yeah.
I have all this stuff I have to do.
Yeah.
And, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Why? Why can't it be great? Why can't you wake up and go, you know what? Everything I have going on, it's a blessing that I'm here to do it.
Yeah.
It's a positive that I'm getting out of this bed and I can walk right now and go do those things. So I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to start this day off on a great note. And everything I do today is going to be great.
And that does, right? That does actually, like, you attract energy, right? You attract
You do.
positive energy.
You do. It's a law of attraction. Your thoughts, what you think, what you put out into the universe is usually what is attracted to you, right? So if you're a positive thinker, if you're giving off positive energy, you're going to attract other positive people.
Mm-hmm.
And it works in the other way too.
Yeah.
If you're negative, no matter what's going on, and you're having negative thoughts and you're expressing that out into the world, into the universe, you're going to attract those types of people and those type of results, right? So that mindset is really critical. And that positive mindset means everything, because if you're talking about finances, right?
Yeah.
In the event you're talking about finances with people, especially your family, well, first you got to get them in a positive mindset so they actually want to have that conversation, because their entire life they were taught you don't talk about money.
Yeah.
Right?
Right, yeah. It's such a personal thing and such a secretive thing, because if you have it or don't have it, you're wondering what people think about you,
That's right.
right? If you don't have it, people are judging you for not having it. And if you do have it, people are hating you for having it.
I've met with thousands upon thousands of people, right? Have over 700 clients. And my clients that are in retirement, the ones that are over the age of 65, they've worked their entire life for what it is they have. And for most people, their biggest concern is, how do I make sure everything I've worked so hard for is going to go to my kids or my grandkids?
Yeah.
And the problem is that they don't realize that if they're not planning properly, if they don't have the right type of protection, the right type of vehicles, savings vehicles and strategies. Well, if you need care one day, if you wake up and you can't bathe yourself, feed yourself, clothe yourself, more than likely that money's going to somebody else other than your family.
Yeah.
Those assets are going to someone else other than your family. And we have to reverse engineer how we're programmed so that we can start having these conversations earlier in life. Because if we wait until something happens, it's too late. Right? We got to have these conversations earlier when everybody's happy and healthy and going on vacation together and doing fun things, and being on vacation and feeling like we can have that conversation. It's not weird or awkward or negative. And the family actually wants to talk about it, and different generations of the family want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right?
So how do people change this mindset, and how do we get people to start talking about money? I guess the question is, do we start with our youth then? And then what do we say to them?
Well, actually, I think we start as adults, right? Because the youth are watching us. Like I said before, our relationship with money develops between the ages of 6 and 10, right? So as adults, we have to start to basically change the way we think. And in order to do that, it's small milestones, right? It's like anything else. You're not going to do this overnight. It's not going to happen in a day or 2 days. It might take a year. It may take 5 years, but it's really training ourselves to realize when something happens, how we're feeling at that moment and being present, right? Where we don't have our cell phone telling us how to act or what to do. And we're not using social media to escape from reality. We're not changing the subject because something bad has happened or something that's really relevant has happened that we don't want to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It's really coming to terms with that and saying, wait a minute, no, I am going to think about this and I'm going to find whatever I can find that's positive about it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's really hard. When you think of things that are very strong, that are very impactful, like the death of a loved one
Mm-hmm.
or a birth of a loved one, right? Or I've lost money in the stock market,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or, someone got fired from their job, right? A lot of times it's hard to find positive things in a situation like that, but there are positive things.
Yeah.
If we look hard enough, right?
Yeah.
And even little things like, hey, I'm stuck in traffic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Am I going to get upset about it? Or am I going to realize I can only control what I can control?
Yeah.
And if you go with that mindset every day of your life, I can only control what I can control. All the other little things, all those other negative things are meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
Being stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
Who's in office, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All these different things that we have absolutely no control over.
Right. Well, what are some techniques we can use to remind ourselves or start to think positively? Are there, I've been starting to tell more patients, like teenage patients of mine, about a nightly meditation where you remove yourself from here and just allow yourself to be in another dimension for 20, 30 minutes just to pause, or else you never pause, right? Even when you're sleeping, you're not pausing really. You're probably thinking, dreaming, stressing in your sleep. So that's what I've been telling people. So how do we start to shift that, because once you're in a ball of negativity and stress and you go down that path, your health changes, then you don't care about your physical fitness, what you're eating, what you're doing, how you're coming off to people. Everything kind of goes downhill from there. So how do you stop, break, and change? And how do you get the masses to do that? Because most people don't even want to.
That's correct. So let's start. I'll give you 3 examples of ways that you can make change within yourself, because before you can help the masses, you have to be the one to make the change.
Yeah.
Realizing that when you're hanging out with friends or family or coworkers or anybody, and all of a sudden you are the positive ray of light,
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to not be okay with that, or they might actually be offended by that, because why are you so happy?
Right.
When I'm miserable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, misery loves company.
Misery
right?
loves company.
Yeah.
All of a sudden people are talking like, wow, why is she so happy every day?
Yeah.
Did something happen? Did she win the lottery? What is going on here? And it's going to take them a while to get used to that. But here's 3 things that I personally practice. The first is positive affirmations. I think when I was younger, when I first heard what positive affirmations were, I was like, oh, that's kind of corny, or that's, why are people talking to themselves and telling themselves how great they are?
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when I really started to study the psychology of it, I realized that our brains are extremely, extremely useful. I mean, we're only tapping into a very small portion of our actual consciousness. And we have a conscious part of our brain and a subconscious part of our brain. And our conscious part of our brain is what we use the most. And the conscious part of our brain is really it's pre-programmed, right? What I mean by that is when we're conscious, we do all the same things, almost a routine. At least most of us do. We wake up, we get out of bed, we brush our teeth, we take a shower, we go to work, we say hi to the same people. Mm-hmm. We usually eat the same things for lunch, not every day, but usually at least every week.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And our routine happens, and that's our consciousness. In our consciousness, the best way I can describe it, have you ever been driving on the highway and all of a sudden you daydream for a few seconds and you wake up and you're like, whoa, where am I?
Yeah, and literally fall asleep sometimes. Yes.
Yeah. your consciousness took over.
Yeah.
It knows where to drive to and how to drive and all those things, right? It's your subconsciousness that's truly powerful. And your subconscious is what's active when you're sleeping. When you're really in a deep sleep, you have the REM sleep, your subconsciousness is basically going, okay, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Right? And most people really don't talk to their subconscious. Most people just go throughout their day, do their routine, and they let their consciousness roll, and then their subconscious is never really acting. But the subconsciousness is the part of your brain that's like, feed me. Tell me what you want me to do and what you want me to accomplish, and we're going to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah.
Right? So the reason why positive affirmations are so important is because our subconsciousness responds to visual and audio at all times. And the positive affirmations, that audio that we're providing our subconsciousness, it's not really for us in our consciousness. Like when I look in the mirror and go, I'm a great father. I'm a great husband. I am a great financial advisor. I'm a great friend.
Right.
Like I don't really need to tell myself that. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm telling my subconsciousness so my subconsciousness can figure out how to do it even better.
That's so interesting because we say like we don't need other people to approve of us. That's kind of when you lack self-esteem, you need others to tell you, but you should also believe it. People always wonder, well, how do you do that? That, like you said, it seems corny. Like, it seems like self-involved. Why am I telling? Well, it's so you can believe it. You should believe it.
That's right.
We should be telling people, especially our kids, we need to believe in ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah, we need to have good self-esteem, and that's probably, if you're telling your subconscious, that's what you're truly believing, right? That
is what you're truly believing. And the folks that really lack self-consciousness, it's the reason why they're not doing those things is because they don't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where it all starts. And if we can get them believing in themselves, then they can truly help others believe in themselves.
That's
right?
when you're like a good, helpful citizen of society.
That's right.
It's people who actually lack these things that become the narcissists and
Correct.
the abusers. So this is actually very crucial.
It is. It's all about what you feed your subconsciousness, right? Yeah. It's about what you feed your brain. That's why, a lot of people, and I'm not judging, I used to watch sitcoms a lot when I was younger, but people watch sitcoms and then they go to bed. Mm-hmm. They don't understand when they wake up, why they're so miserable.
Yeah.
But they woke up miserable because they watched some show or something that was highly negative.
Yeah.
And then that's what's sitting in their subconsciousness all night while they're sleeping. And then they're waking up. And the first thing they think about is the last thing they saw when they went to bed.
That's such a good point because I tell kids, some of the things I tell them, this is a deeper understanding you're giving me now, because I tell them they have nightmares or can't sleep. I say, well, you have to put the phone down a couple hours before bed. You can't do video games and YouTube and all these things because you are going to have a lower quality of sleep or nightmares. And we said too, in medical school, there was like this technique of, if you're really trying hard to memorize something, like study it up right before bed and your memories are created at night. So what you do before bed is really, really important for your night and your life.
It is. I'll never forget, there was a time that a very, very good friend of mine who happens to be my mentor, my family's financial advisor, and
cool.
the person who recruited me into this world. And I was a financial advisor. I was in probably my first year, maybe just after my first year. I had been doing this for about a year and a half. And he came to me and he said, "You seem like you're unhappy here. What is going on? You're such a happy person.
Yeah.
You're very energetic, but you seem very unhappy right now. What's happening?" And I said, I'm really not making a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And we had just had our first child. We now have 3.
Yeah.
Right. And this is going back 9 years ago. Almost 10 years ago now, right? We had just had our first child and I wasn't making enough money to really pay the bills. Because in this world of financial planning, this world of finance, it's very tough to earn a living early on. You have to build clientele.
Right.
You have to build trust with people. You have to, show them that you know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And it takes some time. But he came to me and he goes, "Do you have a vision board?" And I said, "What is a vision board?"
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, let me tell you, Matt, it's when you cut out all these pictures of all these things that you really want in life and you put it on a board and you hang that board somewhere that you look at it multiple times a day." And I said to him, "Why in the world would I do that?"
Yeah.
That sounds extremely corny. Again, with the word corny, right? That does not sound cool.
Yeah, I want to do only cool things.
Right. And he goes, "Well, it's because when you're looking at that, you're telling your subconscious mind what you want. And it not only needs you to say it, your mind needs to see it."
Yeah.
So I did it. And, I think it took me a couple months before I actually really did it, to really grasp it, right? To get my mind around the fact that I'm going to put all these pictures on cardboard and it's going to come true.
Yeah. What did your wife have to say about that?
She thought it was really weird.
Yeah.
She was kind of like, "What are you doing?" Because I made a vision board. I made 3 copies. And what I did was I hung, and it was pretty big. I hung it on our mirror in our bathroom, which she did not like because it was on a mirror in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I had one in my car and I had one in my office. Mm-hmm. And my buddy Alex said, "If you look at this board multiple times a day, I guarantee you within the next year or 2, everything on it will come true."
Wow.
So that's what I did. He's very successful, very good at what we do, extremely good at what we do. And I said, I want to be like him.
Yeah.
So I did it. Next thing you know, about a year and a half goes by and everything on the board had come true.
Wow.
And not only did everything on the board come true, there's one piece of it that's extremely amazing that I think sometimes people don't believe me when I tell them this, but I don't really care because it came true.
Right.
So I put all these pictures on the board. I put a picture of the school I wanted my kids to go to, which wasn't cheap. I put a picture of the house that I wanted. I put a picture of the car that I wanted. I put a picture of beach because I wanted to bring my family on vacation. We hadn't been on vacation in years.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I did all these things and they all came true. And, my mother, this is about 2 years later, my mother's standing in my kitchen and she said, "Hey," and she saw the vision board because at that point I was creating a new one. So she sees the old vision board and she goes, "Did you come here and take a picture of this house when you put it on that board?" I was like, "No, I cut it out of a local magazine."
Yeah.
And she goes, "So it's just ironic that you found a picture of the house you live in today." And at that point, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
Because I had looked at it so much, I didn't even realize that the house that we had bought was literally that picture that I had cut out of a magazine.
Oh, that's something.
And then that's when, for me, the power of mindset, the doors blew open.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the goosebumps I felt and just feeling so flushed with, this is real.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
And ever since that day, I've created a new vision board every 2 years. And every 2 years, everything on that vision board has come true.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It's
Right?
so true. I met one of my friend's friends, and she got married for the second time in her late 30s, and she really wanted a baby, and she had the baby naturally before age 45, but like well after 40.
Yeah.
And she was telling a friend who also wants to have a baby, there's so many fertility things nowadays. She was telling her, I just dreamt her into reality. I knew she was going to be here, and I made sure she was here.
Yeah.
And she said, you have to know that your baby's coming.
That's right.
You can't think, oh, well, I have to do this and I have to do that and the hormones and now I'm older. She was like, I was healthy. I had a healthy diet, exercise, prayer, mindset. And, she said, you have to see your baby and then your baby will be here. I was like, that's really amazing.
It's powerful.
Yeah, and in your 40s, it's pretty hard to get pregnant naturally.
Absolutely.
So it's a healthy baby too. Because when she said that too, that kind of gave me a similar feeling as what you're saying now. And it's hard to wrap your head around it, but I guess the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
And again, it's tough because you're changing the way that you do things, right?
Yeah.
And really a habit, good or bad, takes 21 days to form,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to start doing it. And after time, that'll just become habit. You really want to feed your brain, your mind with those positive affirmations, with those visual cues, right?
Yeah.
So you can vision what you want to do so your brain can go accomplish it. Because your mind's so powerful,
Yeah.
it'll accomplish the things that you want to do as long as you tell it what you want to happen. That's really the difference between a goal and a dream, right?
Yeah.
I meet a lot of people and they're like, oh, I never accomplished my dreams. I never accomplished my dreams.
Yeah.
And I tell them, and hopefully sometimes they don't think I'm being,
Yeah.
arrogant, but I say, well, you got to turn your dream into a goal.
Yeah.
And then that goal will become reality. But if it's a dream, it'll always be a dream.
Yeah. And it's true because the majority of people, and I'm sure you see this with the public that comes to talk to you, they keep things as dreams. Like, oh, in my dreams, dream is that connotation of something that will never happen and is in La La Land is a dream. But why not though? Why not you? And why not let that be your reality?
Well, you got to build a bridge. And I know I keep going back to it, but the bridge is really those positive affirmations, that vision board.
Yeah.
That's the bridge between your consciousness and your subconsciousness, right? If you don't build the bridge, all those dreams stay in your subconsciousness because they don't know how to get out. Your brain doesn't know what to do or how to do it or what you truly want. And those dreams are really your subconsciousness trying to wake you up. Like, hey, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, you remember all those things you wanted to do 20, 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Do you still want those things?
Right, yeah.
Because I'm here waiting for you to tell me what to do and I'm ready to go do it, right? But people get wrapped up in, I got to pay the mortgage.
Yeah.
I got to pay the rent. I got to pay the utilities. I got, put my kids through college. And it's like, Well, yeah, you and everybody else.
Right.
But do you want to be different? Do you want to separate yourself from the ordinary and become extraordinary?
Yeah.
And the only way you can truly do that is if you change your mindset.
And just, like you had said, that's because I was thinking, like, how do you tap into subconscious? Well, that's just it, right? You just keep paying attention to it.
Being present.
Yeah.
And in a world that we live in today, with the technology that we have, it's very easy to not be present and almost not be a part, but see everybody else's goals coming to fruition.
Well, see, that's the thing with things like social media. People do put an exaggerated life on there.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything is perfect and wonderful for them.
That's right.
And I don't think you're on Facebook, right?
I have an account, but I don't really use it much. I maybe look at it once a week.
Yeah, because the problem with it is that, like, if you see somebody all the time, their Facebook looks so different than the reality they just spoke to you about. I have a friend who I visited. She had her baby. She was just like, the whole visit with her was just like all the negativity with the baby and the this and that. Everything on her Facebook is smiley, happy pictures with this baby. That as a friend in person, the conversation was, I'm so tired and I can't get her to sleep and I this and that. And it seemed so miserable. Not that she should be miserable, but the reality that she's portraying as like a falseness that makes everybody else feel like, oh, well, her life is great,
It does two things. It makes other people think that her life is great, but what it really does for the person, it gives them another wall to hide behind. And here I am saying this where I know the statistics for financial advisors is that they'll have 35% more business if they're highly active on social media. But I'm okay with sacrificing that. And a lot of advisors would be like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Well, I am. You know why I am? Because I know 99% of what's on social media isn't really the truth. Yeah. Maybe some of it is, but most of it really isn't. And that I don't want to be distracted.
Yeah.
Right? The time people spend looking at other people's lives is the time they're taking away from their own.
Yeah.
And if they truly want to be extraordinary, if they truly want to accomplish their dreams and their goals and their vision and all of those things, well, they won't be using that time looking at everybody else's life. They'll use that time to put into their own, right? We all have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
It's how you use that 24 hours in a day is what separates you from everyone else.
Yeah. Now, do you think, this is kind of an aside, but whenever people say 24 hours in a day, I think about how like 9 hours should be sleeping. They say people have to sacrifice sleep. And the reason I bring this up is kind of connected because I feel like when you do spend time sleeping, you are absorbing your day and you are making memories and your subconscious mind is more at work. So is sleeping okay? I mean, people act like sleep is lazy, but I think sleep is so important, right?
I think sleep is the most important thing for your body. I think that, if you truly want to get the most out of yourself and your mindset and your brain activity and all of that, you have to be well rested. You have to give your brain, like it's a muscle, time to recover from being used.
Yeah.
Right? I had a physical therapist that used to tell me, Matt, when you get done working out, you need to rest and let your muscles recover from all the strenuous activity you just did. Right? And I'd listen and I'd do it. And I'd never really understood why. I was young. I was in my 20s. I'm like, well, I want to go play basketball. I know we just worked out for 3 hours, but all my buddies are going to play basketball, so I want to go do that.
Exactly.
And I would. And then I would wake up the next day and I'd feel terrible. My body hurt and I'm sore. And all my friends would be like, oh yeah, sore is good. It's great for you. It means you're building muscle and you're doing all these great things. And what I learned was none of them knew what they were talking about. That physical therapist, that professional,
didn't know what they were talking about.
They did not know what they were talking about, right? It's like the water cooler talk when people are at the water cooler talking about financial planning. I'm like, they don't know what they're talking about. Exactly. You can take their advice, but they don't know what they're talking about because we're not taught these things in school. Right? So I think your brain is like a muscle where you want to give it as much rest and sleep as you can. And is there too much and not enough? Probably. I think that 8 hours a night is sufficient. Yeah. I think that people that don't sleep 8 hours a night are usually exhausted. Yeah. I think that a lot of times their physical appearance is not good because they're so drained. Yeah. I think that people that oversleep are usually tired in the day.
Yeah.
because I think there's a thing is too much sleep.
Yeah, or sleeping the wrong hours. Like
Yeah.
3 a.m. to noon is 9 hours, but that's not the correct hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that you want to have balance, right? I think throughout a day, you should want to do the things that are going to make you better, like the positive affirmations and looking at the vision board and doing all those things. You should be excelling in your career, whatever it is, right? How do I get better at whatever it is that I'm doing? Because if we're not getting better, what are we really doing, right?
Yeah.
We want to be green and growing, not ripe and rotting.
Right.
So we got to get
Right.
better, right?
Yeah.
But there's also time for fun, and you want to manage that. I think some people that have too much fun, and I think too much is a different terminology or wording for different people, right? But I think if you're in a 16-hour day, right, how much of it is growing, how much of it is fun, and how much of it is feeding your brain? And it should be a well balance between all three of those.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times those balances are so out of whack.
Yeah.
And maybe somebody's having fun for 12 hours a day and only 4 hours a day they're working.
Yeah.
Or maybe, they're feeding their brain for 20 minutes a day and maybe reading a book for 20 minutes, but then the rest of the day they're working. And that's not good either.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes people think it is.
Right. Yeah.
I work really hard and I'm working 16 hours a day. And I'm like, that's not good.
Right. That's not good for you.
No.
Think about how the days of your life are passing by you and what are you doing with that work and your relationships and other people that need you and yourself. Like you're getting burnt out and drained.
I had lunch the other day with a really good friend of mine who's a business owner, does very successful, makes a lot of money, does all these great things. And he's telling me over lunch, kind of almost bragging that, he works 16 hours a day, 7 days a week to provide his family with the lifestyle that they have.
Yeah.
And I said, your daughter is 15 and your son is 13. Do you remember most of their lives? Mm-hmm. And he kind of looked at me and he paused and he goes, well, not everything, but I feel like I've been there enough. And I said, you just told me you work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. When do you sleep and when do you see your kids?
Yeah.
And in 3 short years, your kids are out of the house and they're gone.
Yeah.
Have you spent what has all this been for?
Right.
Right? You have a lot of money. That's great. You have a great business. That's fantastic. You guys travel wherever you want to. That's fantastic. But do you even know what your kid's favorite color is? Do you know what movies they like? Do you know what foods they like?
Yeah.
And he's just staring at me.
Have
And
you
he's
been
like,
to their sports events
Yeah.
and their activities and all these little things that are actually big things to kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a balance. And you can still be successful. You can still do all the things you want if you can figure out that balance and have a positive mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And forgiving yourself, like don't be hard on yourself because you didn't do this piece of work or that thing, because you have to realize a life is a balance and that you do have to balance it out.
Totally.
Yeah. Like when you visualize something, like I haven't done a vision board, but I'm going to. Like if it wasn't a snow day, I'd probably go to Michael's next, but that's what the weekend's for. But I do like to write a list and constantly have a list of to-do list that keeps flowing and I keep crossing it off and doing things because you can't always remember all these things you need to do or want to do.
That's right.
Right? And if you can see it, you can understand what your day is going to look like. I always tell people when they get overwhelmed, just write it all down.
That's right.
You're going to forget too. And it's good to and even have an actual calendar book that you can carry around with you and see and feel. I don't know. Some people are good with the smartphone doing it all for them, but I like to write things down.
I would agree. I've had a journal by my side for probably the last 9 years of my life. Mm-hmm. I carry journals everywhere. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people ask me, we're out to lunch or, we're going out wherever and we're hanging out. They're like, why are you carrying that little book with you everywhere we go?
Yeah.
And I tell them because I can only remember so much.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm losing my memory. It's because so many things happen in a day and I want to remember them.
Yeah.
Right? I want to remember a friend of mine just said that their daughter or son just got into this fantastic new university or college. I don't want to forget that.
Yeah.
Right? Is that really impactful to me for the rest of my life? Probably not, but it's impactful to them and I want to remember that.
Yeah.
Right? My son, the other day, I coach my son's basketball team. Mm-hmm. And my son made this long shot and he was ecstatic.
Mm-hmm.
And he just ran right up to me at halftime. He's like, Dad, did you see that shot? You know, and he's 12 years old. And I wrote that in my journal. I'm there coaching a team. I have my journal next to me. And I said, remember when Jackson hit that shot against Mahonison, 12 years old, second quarter, and the look on his face.
Yeah.
You know, and those are things that I want to remember.
Yeah.
So I think journaling and writing things down, to-do lists, I think it's all important.
And you can read it back and remember nice things too. That's another way to kind of keep a positivity going. So you had said there was 3 things that you do to kind of keep that positive mental mindset.
Yeah.
Wait, did we go over all 3 so far? Okay.
We went through positive affirmations. We went through the vision board.
Yeah.
And then the last but not least is the self-check-in.
Okay.
So at least once every 2 weeks, I take an hour to myself. It's usually in a very quiet place. Mm-hmm. Sometimes a library, sometimes a coffee shop if the coffee shop's not too busy. And I really just do a self-check-in. And what that self-check-in is focusing on all the positive things that I made happen throughout the week, whether it was for myself or for others, and really taking notice of it. Because I think a lot of times as people, we tend to think about the negative and we forget all of the great things that we did. Mm-hmm. Big or small. Connections that we made that might turn into lifelong friendships.
Yeah.
Right? Connections that we made that might turn into business for people. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's someone was very unhappy and crying and we put a smile on their face.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Little things just to, and I journal them and I write them down. So I remember the things that we did.
Yeah.
I think it's important. It's important to feed your brain all those positive things so that you keep doing them.
It's actually very tiring to be negative.
It is.
You feel more like physically drained if you're unhappy and in a negative mood. Those happy hormones, you can actually bring them out with your own mind, like the serotonin and the dopamine, and then you do feel more awake.
You do.
Yeah. Because those medications for attention and that people want their kids to be on, they actually use up your natural serotonin, dopamine hormones like that and stimulate you to focus, think positively, and be awake. But, with medications, if you use those hormones up when it wears off, you feel horrible the rest of the day.
Right.
So, because you just zap it all. But if we do that naturally with our mindset and the foods we eat and our energies, that's how you control these things.
That's how you control them. And also, too, removing the negative things, negative people from your lives the best you can.
Yeah.
It's
a hard one.
It's a hard one because you have family members that are negative.
Yeah.
You have coworkers that are negative. Mm-hmm. And you can't just erase them from existence. You can't erase them from your daily, activities. Yeah. But reduce the exposure.
Yeah.
Right? Because just like positivity, negativity can be very attractive. It could be very captivating where you can fall into that world really quickly.
Yeah.
Right? So surrounding yourself with positive thinkers, positive people, really not letting negative people bring you down and change your own mindset, right?
They can, because there's so many negative people. It's so easy to find negative, to continue the negative, and it's the path of least resistance, right? Because it's so easy to find. But you have to make that extra effort to get away from that.
We had a week, I want to say it was in October. I told my team, I said, every person, and I usually see about 5 to 6 couples a day, business owners, people, right, a day. I said, every person that comes into my office or I'm on a Zoom meeting with or a phone call, I'm going to ask them a question before we even start the meeting. Mm-hmm. And the question's going to be, when's the last time you've laughed so much that your face hurt?
Yeah.
Right? And we did it. And people would come in, they'd smile, and they'd get really happy, and they'd be like, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I say, well, let's change that. Start hanging out with people that make you laugh so much that your face hurt.
Yeah.
Or that people are bringing out so much joy in your life that your face hurts from smiling. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's when everything changes.
Because then it attracts.
It does.
And that's what people's New Year's resolution should be. Yeah. Everyone hits the gym and the diet and stuff, but maybe we should be thinking about our mental health a little more, because the mental health is really going downhill I see kids for mental health issues. Out of 20 patients a day, 5 will be there. That's 25% for some kind of mental issue. I am not even a psychiatrist, but that's become the job.
Yeah.
Because this is what our youth is doing and feeling.
Well, the kids have more exposure to things than we did, right?
Yeah.
Because of technology and social media. Negativity can be spread so much easier through Instagram and Facebook and all these different things. And our kids are looking at us as the role models, as the influencers, as how to get them to be happy, right? Yeah. And it all starts with us as adults. And if we can't have our children smiling all day, every day, we got to look in the mirror and go, what are we doing wrong within ourselves, right? Why am I smiling enough? Am I positive enough?
Yeah.
Am I changing their mindset? Or else it's going to be a vicious circle.
Yeah.
You know?
They're in your home. That's their entire environment. Even if they go to school or go out with friends, but this is their environment they're growing up in. So they're sponging up everything that they're seeing and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many parents that come in, the kid is acting up, miserable. And it's such a touchy subject because how do you tell them it's probably something at home?
Right. It's 100% something at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether parents want to admit it or not, or even think about it.
Yeah.
It's 100% something that's happening at home.
I wish I could do like home visits where I just go and sit there and watch what's going on because I can't see what's going on.
That's right.
So since, we're mentioning the home environment and picking up on just energies and moods with parents, getting back to what we had mentioned at the beginnings, and this is what you do.
Yeah.
If we can just kind of educate people on, assuming that they are comfortable talking about finances because we want them to be comfortable. I guess the question is, once you have a positive mindset, will you feel more positive about talking about money and thinking about money yourself and understanding it? Because then it becomes important to teach your kids about it.
It does.
So if we've accomplished what we've been talking about and get people to be more comfortable, well, let me ask you before we segue into this then. I've talked to a bunch of people about having a financial advisor, and if they need one, I know a good one. So, if they don't have one, because people assume they need to have a lot of money to have an advisor.
Agreed.
But I think, if you're a person walking around the world, you need money. So everybody needs
a financial advisor. Yeah. Really what it boils down to is, I'm going to say this and take it with a grain of salt because I don't know every education system of every town and every community around the country. What I do know is what I've seen. And what I've seen is that we're really not taught financial planning or financial stability in any level of education. Grade school, high school, college. In college, you might be able to take some economic courses, maybe some financial courses, but I'm talking true financial planning.
Yeah.
And because we're not taught these things, most people don't even really know what it is, right? They don't really want to think about, hey, what if I don't wake up tomorrow? What does that look like? How do I make sure my family is in a great space? Right? What if I get hurt or find out I'm extremely sick and I can't go back to work ever again? Or maybe I can't go back to work for 5 years.
Yeah.
What does that look like? People don't think about, hey, how much money do I actually really have to have saved so I never run out of money in my lifetime, especially when I go to retire? We're not taught these things and most people don't think about them. What people need to know and understand is that you don't need a ton of money to have a financial advisor. You need to have the right mindset that you actually acknowledge that there's a problem in our society with education around financial planning, acknowledge that you probably don't really know much in the space, and being okay to talk to somebody that does. You might have to interview a few different people to build trust with somebody that you really want to work with.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the first step. The second step in really teaching the kids about all of this is we have to change habits. We live in a spending society.
Yeah.
Most people spend more than they make. Most people have credit card debt, right? Most people tend to think that because they're working so hard and they have money coming through the door, they can buy all these things that they want. But realistically, here's the magic behind financial planning. People might say things differently, but I'm going to tell you what I think the magic is. No matter what you earn, you should be living off of 50% of it. The other 20 to 30% is going to go to taxes.
Yep.
And the other 20 to 30% we should be saving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we should be doing. So we have to change what we're doing in terms of habits, right? Because those kids are watching their caregivers and parents and what they're doing with money. And now most relationships that I see that are in turmoil is because they're fighting over money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the kids are seeing that and they're wondering why is mom and dad fighting over money? Why is dad and dad fighting over money, or mom and mom fighting over money? What is going on here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because dad just went and bought a new pickup truck,
Mm-hmm.
or mom's been going shopping and
Yeah.
there's no money.
Yeah.
Right. And the kids don't know any better. So when they're developing their relationship with money on their own, they're thinking this is okay because this is life.
Yeah.
This is what happens
This is what
everywhere.
they're seeing, right.
Everybody's family is like this,
Mm-hmm.
but that's wrong.
Yeah.
Right. I think people have to really want to make a change. A lot of people aren't. A lot of people are going to go through life and they don't care, and they're going to do all those things, and their family is never, ever going to prosper.
Yeah.
Generations of their bloodline will never prosper. But the ones that really want to make a change and they want help, and they need accountability, they need people to guide them. Those are the ones that should be looking for the help of financial advisors, right? Mm-hmm. Not only that, those are the ones that really will work on changing the mindset and changing their habits so they can be a great role model, right? A great influencer is the word I'm going to use because that's what the kids are all into these days.
Everyone's saying it.
Right?
Yeah.
The parents are a great influencer for their kids.
Yeah, and you should be. Because your kids are looking at you for everything. Whether they're saying it or not, they need that. Kids don't even realize, like they may say one thing, but their mental stability depends on your guidance and your role modeling for them. They're looking at the parents for that.
They are.
And if you don't, you're looking at other adults, and then you're confused and you don't know, or grandparents, aunts, teachers, whoever.
We start bringing kids into our office at the age of 7 or 8 years old. And we spend a lot of time with kids. You know, other financial advisors or people in the industry always say to me, why are you spending so much time with these kids? They're not even working. They're not making any money. What's going on? And I tell them it's because we've got their parents in a good place. Now we need to teach the kids about interest.
Yeah.
And what's good interest, what's bad interest,
Yeah.
right? Why you want to actually put money away and save it in vehicles for growth, like mutual funds, whatever it is. Hey, here's what we can do with money, and your money can go to work for you, and your money can grow without you even having to do anything. Teaching them that the concept that that's even possible. Most kids don't even know that's a possibility, right? And the other reason we bring the kids in is because guess what? We want all of this growth, all this wealth or assets, whatever the heck we built, we want it to transfer to those kids, and we want them to be able to keep transferring it from generation to generation and understand how to do that, how to do it efficiently, and how to make sure that their kids and their grandkids are going to be in a position where they can do great things with their lives because the generations before them taught them how to do it, because they're not going to learn it in school.
Yeah, no. I actually tried to find resources from the American Academy of Pediatrics, thinking this is an important topic and what they advise, and there's nothing that I could find, because this is just a topic people don't think of with kids. And you should. This is part of their future. We give them allowances, right? And start them off on doing chores and allowances. Teenagers are getting jobs so they can get their cars. But what is the proper way? When is it a good time to get your first bank account and credit card and all of these things?
Yeah, I think really it depends. It's not a cookie cutter approach, right? Because it depends on the individual. But I think most kids should have a bank account by the time they're 16, right? Credit cards is a different subject, right? It depends on their education level. You know, what have they been taught by their parents? What have they been taught by educators? Are they going to get that credit card and immediately go spend every dollar on it?
Yeah.
And I'll be completely transparent with you. When I was in college, I was that kid.
Yeah.
My parents didn't teach me about money. I grew up very poor. I grew up in a neighborhood where a financial advisor wasn't going to step into that neighborhood. I went to college, walked on campus, and the first thing I saw was a tent. Hey, come get this Chase credit card. You can get up to $5,000.
Yeah.
Here I am, a college kid, walking in on the first day of school, and somebody's handing me $5,000.
Right, that's what it seems like. It feels like they're giving you this license to spend
That's right.
all this money.
And all of a sudden, you do. And then a year goes by, and hey, now you owe $6,000.
Yeah.
I only used 5.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you own 6 because of this thing called interest.
Right.
Right? And that's what we teach the kids. What's good interest? What's bad interest?
Yeah.
Bad interest is like credit card debt, where you're going to use this money, but guess what? They're going to charge you 22% every month that you haven't paid it back, or you only paid back some of the principal, or maybe only some of the interest. And that's going to keep compounding negatively. And most adults don't know that.
Yeah.
So we have to change that so that the kids can learn this, so they're not falling victim of that. Because these credit cards will give cards to just about anybody that's of age.
They like to give them to college kids.
Correct.
When I was in college, same time as you, they made a phone call to the house asking about getting a Rutgers MasterCard, first credit card. You know, they want to, because we're feeling for a lot of us, our first taste of independence, living away from home perhaps. You're 18, you can vote, and all that fun stuff. So they're like, well, here's another piece of adulting.
That's right.
Get a credit card, even though you don't have a job.
Right, exactly. Right. And it's important that people build credit. It's important for kids to be able to build credit, because when it comes time to them wanting to start businesses or buy houses and do all these things, you want to have some sort of background in credit and have that exposure. However, it's also important that they understand, how does credit work? How does debt work? How does interest work? There's 3 things you need to be successful. You need great health, you need a great mindset, and you need to understand finances. Mm-hmm. And most people lack a lot of that. Yeah. Right?
It's true. And, you know, if we can, sometimes it's about approaching that subject that scares you, because I think there's a lot of fear with this subject. But if we just face our fears ahead of time, before you get into financial difficulties, think about how you can succeed with finances and what you do when you get your job and you start life this way.
On the other side of fear is bliss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
People may like him or not like him anymore, but I don't really care. Will Smith had this great video once, and he's talking about how all of his friends were meeting up for a little reunion. They all decided they wanted to go skydiving. Yeah. And Will Smith's like, all right, I'll go skydiving with you guys. You know, I don't want to be the wimp. Like, I'm going to go. Yeah. Right? And that whole night he couldn't sleep, the night before they're going. Like, did not sleep at all because he was terrified of jumping out of a plane. Yeah. And he talks about how he was shaking all night and just thought he was going to die the next day. And didn't want to say anything to his friends and his buddies because he didn't want to be the guy that was too afraid to go skydiving with everybody. So he went. And he said that when that door opened, they jumped out of that plane. He felt absolutely terrified for a second until he was free falling in the air, and he looked around himself and saw the beauty of everything he saw. And then they landed gracefully on the ground, and he said that was probably the best experience of my life. Yeah. And I'm so happy that I overcame my fear, because if I didn't, I would never have experienced that. Yeah. And what I took from that is that on the other side of fear is bliss. And once you realize that fear is a figment of our imagination, danger is real. Fear is fake. Right? Yeah. It's all your mind terrifying yourself. It's your imagination of the things that could happen that could, again, be negative and bad. Mm-hmm. But if you overcome that fear, your life will be so much better. That's true. And like you said, it's our own mind doing that. It's our own mind. There's no lion in front of you making you scared. It's just your own mind. It's your own mind. Yeah. That's all it is. So true. That was good information. I hope people start to think about it and keep their minds open to what you were saying and what we've been saying. I mean, me included. Yeah. I need to get this year started right. It's January 2023. It's the year to think positive. You know, this couldn't come at a better time. Now with, you know, the pandemic, in a sense, being behind us. I mean, we still have COVID and other viruses, and we always will. But, you know, all that we've just been through is yesterday. We're going to move forward. We're all going to move forward in 2023. And we should start thinking with the economy the way it is. Let's think about how to turn it into a good thing. Yeah. Let's start to invest. Let's start to be positive, look forward to this year, assume positive intent from people. That's what my sister's goal is. Should always assume positive intent too.
don't assume someone's trying to make you mad. They probably didn't mean it. Maybe they did, but let's try to, and if they did, let's step away from them. Let's step away from toxins. Let's do good things for ourselves. Think good thoughts before bed. Wake up positively. Think about our futures in a good way together. And what else advice do you have for this coming year to wrap up for people?
Control what you can control and be very mindful of that. Do your best to control your thoughts and realize that you are in full control of how you think and your actions and how you act. Go out there and change somebody else's mindset because you've become a master of your own.
Beautifully said. Well, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.